Good evening and welcome to BSPN. I'm Jeremy Vella.
I'm Brett Malman.
And I'm Mike Bergner.
Welcome to another edition of BSPN. Here's what's making headlines in tonight's news. The MLB is opening up its season this weekend with the Chicago Cubs taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. How do you think that one will fare out?
Yeah, it's a good matchup between NL Central teams. You've got the Cubs who are rebuilding, a lot of young talent. I've said it before on the show. I really like the way that their organization is heading. They brought in Theo Epstein to be their GM, I think last season or a few years ago, and he's really done a great job getting a lot of players in there. And of course, John Lister, the ace, is going to be starting for them on opening day. But going against a team like the Cardinals, who always seem to find ways to win, to get back to the playoffs, they're going to be a formidable opponent. I think that the Cardinals can get this first game, this first win, but the Cubs, I'm excited to see what they can bring this season.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to have your phenom, Kris Bryant. They sent him down to the minors. But they might be able to squeak out a win here, but it is always a rebuilding year for them.
Speaking of rebuilding, they are rebuilding their stadium, and that comes to June when they will open up those brand new bleachers. But until then, they're going to be playing without bleachers. How do you think that fares without a crowd?
I mean, Wrigley Field's still one of the best environments in all of baseball, so the tradition is endless there.
It is the oldest park right now being used, so there's history there. You're not just going to tear it down.
Now, looking to local teams, you have the Yankees are opening up their season at home against the Blue Jays, and you have the Mets out in Washington taking on the Nationals. How do you think our local teams will do?
Yeah, I don't know how the Yankees are going to score runs early on. You have Ellsbury who's going to set the table, but Gardner's been struggling a lot in spring training. You really hope that McCann can return to his form that he had in Atlanta. I think, for a catcher, it's tough to put up huge numbers because they do play so many games behind the plate. But, you really want to see him have somewhere like 20, 23, 24 home runs, 90 RBI. If he can produce that for the Yankees, I think they'll be a lot better off this season than last year. We don't know about how Carlos Beltran's going to play, and Mark Teixeira, he, again, might be hurt, not playing opening day.
Yeah, the Yankees just don't have that power hitter that can, when they're in need of runs, can be counted on to get to the plate and get a solid double or or even a home run. So that's going to be their struggle this season. I think their pitching is something to worry about, and because of that, the fact that they don't have a prolific offense is even scarier.
Yeah, you definitely need run support. One name who's making headlines within recent weeks is Alex Rodriguez coming back from his suspension. He's belted 7 home runs thus far in spring training. Do you think he's due for a big season?
Yeah, he's played all right so far, but it is spring training. The pitchers aren't putting their best stuff out there. But, hey, I think he can still catch up to the fastball, so I don't really see a problem with that. But I don't think he's going to have a huge year.
If he hits 20 home runs, I'll be surprised. I just don't see him playing in more than 120 games, maybe 15 home runs and like 75 RBIs. I think they should put him in like the 5 or 6 spot. I know he's that permanent DH, but I don't see him as a threat anymore.
Yeah, and the Yankees' inability to produce runs is the mirror opposite of what the Toronto Blue Jays can do. Because you look at the middle of their lineup with Jose Bautista, Edwin Encarnacion, and Josh Donaldson, that might be the scariest middle of the order in all of baseball. So they're going to put up some big runs in this series. I could see some of these games going, maybe 9-8, 9-7. It's going to be a big scoring fest. And a big addition for the Blue Jays was Russell Martin. A lot of the past years, they didn't really have a catcher that was a veteran, a guy who could get on base or could hit well, and who can also control the pitching staff. A young pitching staff in Toronto with a good catcher like Russell Martin, I like how that could turn out for them.
All right, headed over to our MLB pick'ems this season. We're going to go division by division, and we're going to get your picks and your insight. We start with the AL East.
All right, so the team I have coming out of the AL East is the Boston Red Sox. Unfortunately, not going to be my Yankees, but the Red Sox, even though their pitching is a project, and they're going to have some guys step up for them. I think that their offense is good enough with Hanley Ramirez, Pablo Sandoval, David Ortiz. I see Dustin Pedroia bouncing back, so I think that the Red Sox can definitely win the AL East.
I have the Baltimore Orioles winning the AL East for me. They won it last year. I think they are just a solid, well-rounded team. Not many stars, but they get the job done. They get their wins, and I see them as the strongest team in the AL East.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Boston Red Sox in this one. You really can't doubt what they did this offseason, picking up Pablo Sandoval and Hanley Ramirez. It's going to be a lot of difficult matchups over there in Boston. All right, moving on to the AL Central. Who you guys got in that one?
Yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a surprise. I don't really want to go with the Tigers. They've won it the last couple of years. I'm going to go with the White Sox. This is a team that surprised a lot of people last year, but Jose Abreu, I think he can even take a step forward from what he did last season. A great rookie year last year, although not really a rookie because he played so many seasons in the Dominican Republic. So, he's going to put up big numbers. They added Melky Cabrera. They added Jeff Samardzija and David Robertson to the pitching staff. So I really like how the White Sox have done in the offseason, and I think that they'll play well all year.
I'm going to go with the Kansas City Royals. Very exciting team to watch as it came down the stretch last season, and I think, I think they have what it takes to win in that division this year.
All right, and I'm going to go with the Tigers. I really think that they still are the team to beat. They were dominant last year. Losing Max Scherzer will hurt a little bit, but I think that they'll be able to go through with it. All right, moving on to the AL West now.
All right, in the AL West, I'm going to go with the Angels. They won it last year. They have a lot of talent. They were supposed to, really be the team that could contend for World Series maybe 2 years ago when they got Albert Pujols, Josh Hamilton, and of course Mike Trout. So they have a lot of talent. I have to go with them. Oakland, I think they got worse. Texas, losing Yu Darvish, they're not going to be as good. The Mariners are coming up, but I think the Angels will still have it this year, even though their pitching is, again, a bit of a struggle for them. But I think Jared Weaver and Garrett Richards will be able to carry the load.
You mentioned the Mariners. They're my team to take it out of the West. They have a good offense going for them. They got Robinson Cano. They have Nelson Cruz, who's a great power hitter. Also, they have King Felix on the pitching end. So I think this is going to be their year. They're going to come out of the West. And worst case for them, they do make the wild card, I think.
I agree with Mike. I'm going to go with the Seattle Mariners. I really think that this is their year. They came really, really close last year to winning. This is going to be the year for them. Cano's going to power them. All right, moving over to the NL. So we start in the NL East.
Is this a question? The Nationals are going to win the division. Their pitching staff is one of the best that we've seen maybe in a long time. Maybe since the Braves when they had Maddox, Smoltz, and Glavine. So this is some serious stuff that they've got. And I don't really see the offenses of the NL East being able to hit these pitchers.
No, I'd have to agree. I'm going to go with the Nationals as well. They're a young team overall. They have great pitching talent, and it's a pitcher's league now, so that's really important. And they just don't have much competition in the East. The Phillies have fallen from the Stars in the last few years.
Yeah, there's really not much competition in that division. I'm going to take the Nationals as well, but I do see the Mets as a team that could possibly get a wild card spot this year. It should be interesting to see what they do there.
Yeah, they should be able to compete for a wild card spot. They'll be close probably towards the end of the year, but I'm not sure if they'll be able to get it.
All right, moving on to the NL Central.
I got to go with the Cardinals. It's a team that seems to win that division a lot. They've done it over the last few years. A lot of those guys are aging. Matt Holliday, he's aging.
The Pirates winning this division, I think that they are a young, talented team, and they've been surging the past few years. I see them as a team that could win the NL pennant. I see them as 100-game winners this year, and that's my bold prediction for the NL Central.
Now, I agree with Mike. I don't know if I'll go that far and say that they'll have 100 wins, but I do think that they could win the division. They're definitely a team to beat at home, winning a lot of the playoff games last year, and they could go deep into the playoffs with winning at home. Could make a run into the World Series. All right, moving on to the NL West.
Well, looking at this division, I'm going to pick the Dodgers. You can't doubt what Clayton Kershaw is doing, putting up Sandy Koufax-type numbers. He's obviously a stud, the ace of that team. They also brought in Brandon McCarthy in the offseason. They brought in a veteran presence in Jimmy Rollins. He's going to be playing shortstop. I don't know what he'll be able to contribute with the bat. But you have Yasiel Puig, and you have a young guy, Jock Peterson, who's going to be the X factor for that team. He's a rookie, but I think he'll put up big numbers, and I see the Dodgers winning that division.
You know, I think I have the San Francisco Giants winning that division. They won the World Series last season. We're coming on really strong. I know they lost Pablo Sandoval, so they kind of lost some of their offense. But really, this team plays off of their pitching. They have a great rotation, and Madison Bumgarner, the key pitcher in their rotation, is only 25 and already has 3 World Series under his belt. He's quite a talent and coming into his prime still, I think, and that is going to propel them this season.
All right, I'm going with the Padres. Padres fans, get excited. This is your year. The huge additions of Matt Kemp and Justin Upton right in the middle of their lineup are going to be huge for their power numbers and could drive them into the division title. You heard our picks. Now we want to hear yours. Tweet us at BSPN_Bing or like us on Facebook at BSPN. Moving on to other topics in the MLB, David Ortiz came out on the Players Tribune, Derek Jeter's new website, and said that he unknowingly might have taken steroids. Not knowingly. Is he lying?
You know, David Ortiz has said some things over the past few years that sort of goes back and forth on whether he did steroids, whether he didn't. As a Yankees fan, I'm a little bit biased, but still, you know, from a baseball fan perspective, I don't really believe anything that David Ortiz says. I don't really believe anything that a lot of the players say that came out of that era, and that's just, you know, the bias that accompanies that whole steroid era.
Yeah, you know, it definitely seems like a lot of players who have been found to take steroids definitely say, I might have unknowingly taken them, but I never took them on purpose.
It's a popular line.
It's a great line. I mean, even like that case 2 years ago, Ryan Braun, huge case. No, everyone believed him. He actually got away with it, and then he was found caught later. So if a guy like him is found using steroids, I don't put it past anybody.
Yeah, and you look at the age-old argument with Yankee fans and Red Sox fans. The Red Sox fans always going at Yankee fans all about how the Yankees have been caught doing steroids, and you know, Ortiz has always been that point that the Yankees have made that he never got caught. He did say that he may have got them at a mall in pill form. Do you guys think that that's true?
Nope. Do not think that's true.
I mean, you never know.
Never know.
He just needs to get his story straight. Come up with one story, stick to it, and I'll be happy.
Yeah,
whether he did it or not.
He's been doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, so we'll see how that goes. Moving on, Kris Bryant recently got sent down to the minor leagues. Jeremy had him early in the spring as his future Hall of Famer. Jeremy, what do you think of this move?
Yeah, well, you know, for the Cubs, Kris Bryant isn't the only player on that team, even though sometimes I wish he would be the only player on the team, because a lot of Kris Bryants, I mean, the Cubs would be pretty damn good. But, you know, putting him in the minors for an extra 2 weeks, he's going to be under team control, arbitration eligible for an extra year with the Cubs, so it's a smart move. Theo Epstein was going to do it all along. We all knew that. But he's coming up quick. Those, whatever it is, 12 days that he needs to be in the minors, he's coming up, and he's going to, you know, provide some big power numbers for the Cubs.
Could you see him being the equivalent to Jose Abreu?
It's a little different because Jose Abreu, I think, came from a more talented league than if he just came from the minors. But Kris Bryant, I mean, player of the year in the minors, I think he's going to put up big numbers, maybe not 39 home runs like Abreu had last year.
Yeah, it could be interesting to see, but especially looking at the ballparks, they're relatively similar. And of course, the climate is exactly the same in Chicago.
Yep.
So it should be interesting to see what happens. We'll be back right after this.
Repeat, back-to-back titles. What a finish. It's back-to-back titles for the resides once again in Miami.
It seems like you just can't do anything these days without a big three.
Harvey Sanger's office. Who's calling?
We're back, and we're talking about the NBA. At this point in the season, injuries are starting to derail a few teams' seasons. So let's start with the big injury coming out of Oklahoma City. Kevin Durant, he's been hurt for a bunch of games, but now officially out for the season and longer.
Yeah, he's shut down for 6 months from any basketball play. He's going to have a procedure, and they're just trying to rest his foot. They don't want anything bad happening to him. Obviously, feet are a very important part of NBA. Many players have been sidelined for good because of problems like that, such as Yao Ming and some various other players.
Yeah, it definitely hurts their playoff chances. You know, they're probably going to end up having to play Golden State. I don't see them beating them without Kevin Durant. So their season's basically over for me.
Yeah, and of course LeBron James winning the MVP a bunch of years in a row. He hasn't had injury problems, but Kevin Durant winning it last year. And you look at another MVP, Derrick Rose, who won it, a bunch of years ago, and how his career progressed. I really hope that doesn't happen for Kevin Durant.
Yeah,
because
if it starts to become a chronic problem.
Well, I definitely think that this injury does have an effect on his contract status because he is going to be a free agent at the end of next season. So now you're going into the last year of your contract, coming off an injury, and I don't know if he's going to end up staying with the Thunder. I think that this kind of points to signs that he's leaving. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the same as in baseball where people go into their contract year, they seem to have this amazing year all of a sudden. In the NBA, the players are who they are. They never have this breakout year just because they're going for a new contract.
And most of the time, they're playing with a new team. You mentioned Kevin Love, who just got traded in his last year coming out of Minnesota. You could look elsewhere where Dwight Howard got traded at the trade deadline. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about players that could Kevin Durant be traded? A player of his quality, could he possibly be traded next year?
It's possible. I doubt it. I think he's just going to play out, this season. He's going to be healthy, for a part of next year at least. They'll still be a solid team, and I think that he could end up signing elsewhere during the offseason, but they're going to do their best to keep him.
Another injury that we can look at is, well, not necessarily injury, but Dwight Howard returned to basketball this past week for the Houston Rockets, and I think that's really going to help them coming down the stretch. James Harden and Dwight Howard back together.
Yeah, it's not Dwight Howard at 100%. He's still at a minutes limit, and he's not going to play every game down the stretch. But the way the Rockets have played without him is incredible, and a lot of that credit does go to James Harden, an incredible scorer, and he's been a team leader this season. But Dwight Howard coming back, he's going to help out rebounding, he's going to score down low, hopefully he can hit some free throws, and I think the Rockets are becoming probably the top contender to overtake the Warriors in the West.
I would think so too.
Yeah, it's definitely huge for them. Of course, this is still James Harden's team. There's nothing taken away from that. Do you think that Dwight might get in the way of that a little bit?
Well, I don't think so, especially because, like I said, being on a minutes limit, he doesn't have much control over the game. So when he comes in, he can contribute rebounding, a little bit of scoring down low, following up shots, but he has to see that the team is playing well and just try to fit in and help them out and help out James Harden in his run to, claiming the MVP and to leading them to a possible NBA Finals.
And we send it over to our floating heads. The Final Four, Duke, Michigan State.
Michigan State, a surprise team in the Final Four. Duke, a lot of people knew they would be there all season. I'm going with Duke to win this game.
I'm going with the hot team here. It's Trice time in Spartansville. Go Spartans.
I'm going to go with Coach Tom Izzo in Michigan State. He's the only coach to get to the Final Four with 3 teams of 5 seed or worse. So I think he's definitely, he's going to make it to the championship game this time.
Kentucky, Wisconsin.
Kentucky surviving the scare against Notre Dame, still undefeated, 38-0, a rematch of last year's semifinal against Wisconsin. But I think Frank Kaminsky is going to be bottled up by Karl Anthony Towns and Willie Cauley-Stein. I see Kentucky going back to the championship.
I got to go with Wisconsin here. I've been preaching on Kaminsky the entire season, and finally he's going to take over.
I'm going with Wisconsin. Frank Kaminsky looking strong after last game, and Kentucky almost losing to Notre Dame. I think that it's their time to lose.
Opening day 2015. The Blue Jays and the Yankees.
Gotta go with the Yankees in this one, a team that the last few years they've struggled on opening day, but I think that Tanaka is going to pitch very well and get the Yankees the win.
Got to go with the Yankees on this one. Opening day, Masahiro Tanaka starting. I think he's going to get out to a 1-0.
Gotta go with the Yankees. They're at home. Neither the Blue Jays or the Yankees are on top of their division, so I'm going to go to the Yankees. Home field advantage.
The Mets and the Nationals.
Well, the Mets, a team known for having some of their best games on opening day, but I think that Scherzer for the Nats is going to carve them up and get the win.
Got to go with the Nationals on this one. Their power is too deep for the Mets. They're going to take this one.
I'm going with the Nationals. I just think that their lineup is stronger, and the Mets starting pitcher for opening day, Bartolo Colon, even though he's done it before, I just don't think he has the stuff anymore.
Opening night, Cardinals Cubs.
Well, the Cubs, a team in complete rebuild mode, but I'm going with the Cardinals.
The Cubs are under construction, just like their stadium. Cardinals in this one.
Let's go Cubbies. I'm rooting for the Cubs on this one because I want them to win a World Series. Thanks, guys. So as you just saw, our floating heads made their predictions for this upcoming Final Four matchups. But let's talk about how we got to there. So Notre Dame played Kentucky this past weekend. They played them in a hell of a game. They lost 68-66, really on the last possession of the game. What do you guys think of the game, how they played? What does this mean for Kentucky?
Kentucky has been tested all season in a few games. A lot of people want to say that they're just blowing everyone out, which they do blow out a lot of teams. I mean, they did blow out West Virginia in the Sweet 16. Mm-hmm. But they were tested by LSU earlier in the season. That was a 2-point win. They played Georgia pretty close in, I think that was the game before the SEC tournament. Mm-hmm. So Kentucky, they sort of seem beatable. And it's tough to say that because they are 38-0 and nobody's beat them. And you want to see someone beat them to give confidence to the teams that are trying to, dethrone them and beat them. But I think they're somewhat beatable. I think a team like Wisconsin obviously is going to present matchup problems because Kaminsky can get out and shoot for a big man. But that was just an incredible game against Notre Dame.
Notre Dame gets it in. Here's Grant. Clock is ticking. 3 it goes to 2 to 1. Grant gets the shot up. Oh, it just misses. Kentucky.
That last shot, though, if that fell for Jerry and Grant, I mean, that would have been, one of the best shots in tournament history. But Kentucky, they roll along, and here they are, Final Four.
Yeah, I think the key to beating Kentucky is bodying. Like Notre Dame had their 7-footer and another 6'10" guy playing defense on Cauley-Stein and Towns, and he was bodying him up, doing great. So I think that's the key to beating Kentucky.
Yeah, you have to keep their big men away from the rim, which is tough for any team to do.
Yeah, Karl Anthony Towns was pretty dominant underneath the boards, and he put Notre Dame into foul trouble a bit towards the end, where they couldn't really pressure him because they were trying to avoid fouling out their best player, August.
Well, that's what they do. No other team can go 10 deep with McDonald's All-Americans like Kentucky can, so they don't get into foul trouble.
That's true.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see when they go and they play Wisconsin, if Wisconsin does put the body on them, or if Frank Kaminsky ends up in foul trouble.
Yeah, well, Wisconsin actually almost had a scare against Arizona also this past weekend. They ended up winning by a decent amount, but it was very close for a while.
Yeah, the second straight year that Wisconsin defeated Arizona in the Elite Eight. Arizona, they did lose some players from last season, like Aaron Gordon, a guy who got drafted very early on by the Magic in the NBA draft. But they brought back a lot of talent, and they had a freshman named Stanley Johnson who was playing great all year. In this game, though, he had a scratch to his eye, which I think affected his play in that game. Could have been one of the reasons they lost. I'm not going to pin it all on that. But, Wisconsin, Kaminsky took over, and Sam Decker, it's a guy who's really having his coming out party in the tournament, a highly touted player for them, but showing off athletic ability and big shot making. And I think they shot, they made maybe 9 3-pointers in that second half.
Yeah.
So if Wisconsin's shooting like that, they can beat anybody, including Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now I saw it as a different game. I saw Wisconsin show what they can do. I feel like every single game this March Madness has been close somewhat, except for that West Virginia-Kentucky game the other night. But most of the games have been close, and so I did see Wisconsin prove that they are worthy of being in the Final Four, and now they face the Beast.
Yeah, I think the closest game this weekend, though, has to be the Michigan State game. Tom Izzo coaching his 7th seed over 4 seed Louisville. And they went into overtime. Last second shot by Louisville to get into overtime. Just a great game. Such a great atmosphere in Michigan State. I actually heard that a few students were arrested for partying afterwards. But what can you expect? They're in the Final Four.
Yeah, a 7 seed making it, an underseeded Michigan State team last year. Who won it? Connecticut as a 7th seed. So a popular position to come out of. But 2 big programs, 2 big-time coaches, and an overtime game for these teams. You couldn't really have asked for anything better.
And of course, it was coming in the arena where one of the biggest coaches, Jim Boeheim, coached. And unfortunately, they're not in there right now, Syracuse basketball being. And so now we look ahead to what they're facing up against, where Duke played Gonzaga, with Duke coming out on top. So now they go and they face Duke. What do you see in their game that could lead to...
Yeah, the way Duke is winning without Jahlil Okafor having big monster performances is very impressive when you have Tyus Jones, Justice Winslow, and Quinn Cook playing at the level that Okafor can play at. So, Duke, I'm not really sure who can beat them. I think they look headed for a championship rematch with Kentucky, not rematch, but a championship matchup with Kentucky. I'm not really sure how Michigan State can stop them with all the speed, the size they have. But, I think it'll be a close game. Like you said, Brett, all the games have been pretty close. I don't see it being a blowout.
Yeah, I don't think you could have asked for a better Final Four this year.
Yeah, Mike, I definitely agree. It should be interesting to see how those results come out. From all of us here at BSPN, Brett Malamud, Jeremy Gall, Mike Bergner. We'll see you next week.